All right, Kristen, it is episode 16, but it is not just any episode. We have a very special guest today, and you brought her into the show, so I'm going to turn it over to you. Introduce Debbie.
Absolutely. Debbie comes with a little bit different Disney perspective because she is in the fine arts and specifically the collection of Disney fine art at her gallery. So, Debbie, thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing some of your journey.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Debbie, can you just share who you are, what type of gallery you operate, and like what's the overall heartbeat, in the main character in that lane that you're in?
I'm someone who loves color and glass. And when I was little, I collected comic books. And I remember the very first time I was in second grade and someone brought a Richie Rich comic book to school. I had no idea what comic books were. I'd never seen one. My whole world changed. My stomach flipped upside down, this or that, and I started collecting Richie Rich comics and Archie comics like crazy. Now, unfortunately, I would have done much better off financially had I done the superheroes, but this is what I liked. And it just changed my world. And when I started collecting animation, it felt related to the comic book. It was the same kind of characters, it was the color, it's the make-believe and things like that. So when I was trading, my first job out of university was in London for Baring Securities, who don't exist anymore. And a fun thing is I love London. I wanted to live in London. I had a flat there for 20 years. For a long time, I was the second biggest gallery in England, even though I didn't have a gallery, because I would go every few months. I would do trade shows. I was writing an article. It doesn't exist anymore, but the magazine was called Collectibles. So I had a
Hmm.
monthly article in there, and I focused on educating collectors because I've been doing this for a long time. So animation art collecting started as kind of hobby. And then there was some auctions and Spielberg's buying, Michael Jackson's buying, the prices are going crazy. I started the gallery in 1993. So I've had it for a while. And what I noticed, particularly in England before the internet, and I'm older, so I'm not remembering as well. But like back then, I would go somewhere when I'm collecting, I'd go to visit a friend or something and look in the yellow pages. Is there an animation art gallery here? There was one magazine that doesn't exist anymore called Storyboard. I'd look in there. Where are the galleries? There were 30 galleries, 50 galleries, whatever. Like, it's not so easy. Now you Google. Then there was a lot of detective work happening. And so it made it
Right.
a lot harder to know what was going on. But in England, a lot, there was a huge Disney store at the time in Regent Street in the center of London, and they asked me to teach a class to their employees about the differences in the art. There's original art, right? Things used to make the cartoon, original production art. And production covers all of it. It could have been edited, it could be color model, storyboards, drawings, concept art. The cells are what most people recognize, like this way, the cell
Right.
from Sleeping Beauty, right? That's what's most recognizable because
Beautiful.
what looks from the film, right? A
Right.
concept art of a castle back there, Mary Blair. You're like,
Yes.
oh yeah, that looks like a Disney castle, but it's not the Disney castle that you see in the
Right.
cartoon. And so what happened is the studios were like, "Ooh, we can make money. We're going to make series cells. We're going to make limited editions." So series cells to me are kind of like a poster on plastic. They're editions of
Mm.
thousands. They retailed for a couple hundred. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you like and you love that Tinkerbell or you love that Lady and the Tramp and that's what makes you happy, I have no problem with that. What I do have a problem with is people buying these things and thinking they're original cells. That
Right.
really upset me. And then limited editions are hand painted. You can usually tell them because there's a fraction. So it's number 2 out of 250. It's number
Right.
29 out of 500. And the pose will usually be perfect. Or Disney was pretty good about staying like, this is a scene from the film. Some of the other studios kind of went off script. They'd have all the characters together or they're playing basketball or all these kind of things. So they would take them kind of outside their normal, where the Disneys were more true to the scenes in the film. And again, nothing wrong with that. But a lot of these limiteds, they were $2,000, $5,000. And you could get an
Wow.
original Maleficent cell for $3, $4, $5,000 and the limited was similar price. I That math wasn't mathing for me.
Right.
But again, this was kind of like the internet was just starting to get going. And I got tricked. When I first started collecting, before I was Gallery Debbie, I went to the Disney store. I saw this beautiful Bambi limited edition. It was wide and it was gorgeous. I bought that and a
Mm.
Cinderella. And if I were to play the tape, I don't believe the Disney store employee said anything that was wrong or really incorrect, but the wording was very carefully worded so that I
Oh,
heard something different. For example, I'm like, "Oh my god, this Bambi's so cute. Isn't it gorgeous? Blah, blah, blah. Did all the backgrounds for Bambi. Look at that detail." I thought I was buying original background by a Disney
oh
artist.
gosh.
I was buying Xerox or a photocopy or a picture.
Right.
Like, why are you selling me on the detail of a Xerox? You know what I mean? So
Right.
anyway, luckily I found out and I returned those pieces right
Good.
away. And they were like $2,500 each. And so then I
Wow.
kind of went on a mission and I'm like, I don't want anyone to have the experience that I've had. And so a lot of
Wow.
my articles and collectibles was about different types of art, be educated. So I'm all about an educated sale. I remember ages ago when I had the gallery in New York, someone calling me and they're like, I have a Steamboat Willie cell. I'm like an original cell from 1928,
Mhm.
which I don't think anyone's found one of, or at least not that I'm aware. So this is like the rarest of the rare of the whatever. And he's convinced, sends him a picture, serious sell. I have a problem with that. I don't think the guy was trying to trick me, but I have a problem that this guy, that's what he bought. So I try and have people really understand what they're buying. And if I lose a sale because of it, so be it. If you walk in and you love the Bella Notte Limited and it's in your price point, I'm not going to tell you don't buy that, but I'm certainly going to make sure you understand what you have.
Sure.
And
Well,
then,
and I think you hit on a good point where, you think of how many of us walked into a store and picked up something that we thought was authentic, right? And we're so close to buying it. Or like you said, maybe we do. It's so easy to do with watches or purses or of course, fine art. And I think now as technology is so advanced and it's becoming more and more difficult to delineate between the difference of what's real and what's not, what's AI, right? I think there's all the more threat out there, for buyers and for people like you that are collectors.
I had a conversation last night for about 20 minutes with a brand new collector who's going to buy a Cruella cell from us.
Yeah.
And I said, how long you been collecting? He goes, I'm just starting. I said, would you like me to give you kind of the lay of the land? And he's like, I would love that. And so I spent 20
Oh,
minutes with him because it matters to me,
right.
Right.
and he's a delightful fellow. And I want him to feel good. I'd like him to be a collector for life. It doesn't do anybody any good for someone to buy something and it's not what it is, and that person doesn't want to collect anymore. It feels bad. They tell their friends, I don't want that. I want people to feel good. Let's feel good about collecting this cute stuff. Let's not feel
Right.
bad, you know?
Debbie, you remind me of when I'm at Disneyland and I hear someone, ask where, Radiator Springs Racers is, and they're, like, in the wrong park, and I have this insatiable need to, like, try and inform and save everyone, which, of course, is impossible to do. What I love most about your story is how you can remember seeing that Richie Rich comic book and
Mm.
just knowing that it meant something and that it had value to you and that you were willing to follow that path and you were willing to have the courage, to pursue that. And yeah, I just can't help but wonder what would our world look like if more people had the courage to recognize what they like and recognize what they love and pursue that path just like you have rather than doing what other people tell them they should be doing or what they need to be doing, right? And so I can hear the passion in, not just what you do, but literally in who you are. And, it's not a surprise that you're way more interested in creating collectors than you are in making a sale, which I think is amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. It doesn't happen often, but once in a while, we'll get someone calling and being like, what's the best thing to invest in? What's the best animation? And I don't love that call because I'm like, listen, I'm not the stock market. It's kind of like
Right.
I'm already, the truth is, I'm already making a markup, right? I'd rather conversation with you about pieces I think are strong value for money, And so And what I try and do is when it's a new collector, I try and interview them a little, like, what are your goals? What price are you trying to stay
Uh,
in? I'm not trying to trick you and go, oh, you're going to go up to 5,000. Here's these pieces. But I need to understand if I'm going to talk to you about $500 pieces, 5,000 or 50,000, because there's no
right.
sense talking to you about 50,000 if that's not in your budget.
Let's take it back to Walt, right? I don't think Walt had at the forefront of his mind the finances, right? We know that to be true, and that's why he needed Roy. He was focused on the experience, and he was focused on, we don't call them customers, but the guests. And there's a lot of parallels there. The more that you're sharing your story and you're passionate about what you do, I would argue that you probably could make a lot more money and pass through a lot more sales if the reverse were true, right? But you're willing to compromise to make sure that the integrity remains intact and that the guest is fulfilled and gets truly what they need, not focusing on the bottom line. And that's what sets you apart, I would say, from probably the majority of galleries. So
Oh,
that's
well,
phenomenal.
one, thank you. And two, I kind of like being compared to Walt. That sounds like an honor there.
Well,
Well,
again,
thank
you're curating collectors just like he wanted to create a guest experience and not just sell another amusement park ride. Because we had
right.
2,000 amusement parks already when Disneyland opened, and he hated them, and he wanted to do something completely new and something completely different. Debbie, I'm curious, you talked about Richie Rich. Do you have a particular piece today? And again, it doesn't really matter how much it's worth or how much it's gone up in value, but do you have a particular piece that you love, and it just for whatever reason you can't even maybe put it into words, that is like your favorite, and why?
I can pick a favorite, but kind of just. So, because I have such the love of London, I don't have it here. It's at the gallery. I have an oversized Peter Pan background of London at night. So I love
Oh,
night and glowing. When I was little, I had a calendar that glowed in the dark and I loved it. I made sure I put the light on so it glowed every night before I went
right.
to
Charge
sleep.
it up.
I love London as we've discussed. And also, I bought this piece, I think it was at Christie's. I can't remember if it was Christie's or Sotheby's. I think it was Christie's. And it's actually an auction where I met my best friend, who's now my best friend in England. And it was really fun. So back then, there was this designer called Karen Millen in London, and I really liked in Covent Garden, and I liked buying her stuff. And she had these pants that I bought. These trousers are Dalmatian trousers. I have the matching jacket. So I used to like to wear them because it'd be a conversation starter. Maybe you get a client out of it. Oh, those are cool. Yep. Anyway, I met him over the phone because I was doing this show and he was going to come do this collector show that I ran for a little bit in England. And I said, I'm going to the Christie's auction. And he goes, I am too. How are we going to recognize each other? Again, pre internet, pre cell phones, pre all these things, because I'm old. And I said, I'm wearing Dalmatian pants. He goes, I'm going to be wearing Dalmatian shoes. And I thought he was kidding me. He wasn't. He actually had these brogues with the little Dalmatian thing. And since then, we've like been best friends. And so this piece not only is a great piece of art, but it
That's
has
how he
people
was able to
connected.
spot you.
Yeah. I,
I love that.
So so to me, that piece has more than just the animation connection, it has a whole range of other things. So for me, pieces just speak to me. So if you were to come see my collection, it's not like I'm gonna be like, "That's the best Alice in Wonderland, and that's the best Snow White." It's just pieces that speak to me. I like things that show the effects. So I like
Mm.
ones where a character's blushing because that's really interesting and unusual. I have a dopey cell where water's squirting out of his ears. I think that's hilarious. I had one with like lightning effects and all these things. And so it's not necessarily everything I have is this museum worthy, like this one behind me. That's when my grandmother's alive, I wanted her to be connected to me. She was in Florida, so I gave her that piece, and that's a piece that
Mm,
was in her apartment. So to me, I have a personal connection to that piece.
Right.
So it's on a different level. But I really like evil. So I like the Cruellas and the
mm,
Maleficents because I think those villains are just so well done. And then I
yeah.
like super cute. So I have like Bambi and Dumbo. I think those are two sides of my
Well,
personality.
that's
I
a
think I got kind
contrast.
of the edgy evil side and then
Right.
the
Wow.
cute sweet side. And then I know this is Disney, but I also collect naked Simpson cells, which is really weird. But I think that's kind of hilarious.
I love
Wow.
that.
Yeah, very cool. So how can people find you and how can they come see your gallery?
The gallery's by appointment only. We have an office space in Koreatown. It's not fancy. It doesn't have everything on the wall with all the names and stuff, but it's kind of like a treasure chest. It's kind of like a treasure
Mm.
hunt, you know?
Like
So you
in
can, what's that?
which is my
Yeah.
favorite pastime. Love a
Yeah.
good hunt.
So there's not really stuff on the wall, but when you walk in, you don't see a lot of art, but then we have boxes and we have things, kind of hidden. We do most of the business on our website. I own the Wonderful World of Animation Gallery, and our website is www.gallery.com. On Facebook, I run the private group, so you're welcome to go on Facebook and join that. We also have the Instagram and YouTube channel and things like that. So one of my favorite things is buying an animator's estate. I mean, I don't like that someone passed away, so maybe that wording wasn't so good. But I'm talking about like a treasure trove of art that we didn't know existed to collectors, right? It was just like one of those Nick Cage movies, right? Where he finds the, treasure here and there. It feels like a treasure hunt, and bought a lot of Robin Hood drawings, and we have some clients that like that. They don't live here. So, I get on the Zoom and I'm like, hey, do you like this one? We make a little pile of what they like. We
Yeah.
price it up, and then they get to pick what they want. And that's kind of fun, right? Because they can't come in person easily. So you do kind of things like that. And then what's also nice is you'll see runs of drawings often. So if you buy an animator's estate, right? Because when you're selling one here and there, and I would love to keep them together. I would love to tell you I
Mm,
can. It's just not that feasible. There's very few
right.
people who can be like, I would like 100 Robin Hood drawings that are almost the same, one
Right.
price rise, and two, you know, you sometimes animators will buy like smaller runs, but it's rare that you can do all that. So sadly, you have to kind of split them up. But then it's
Yeah.
really fun because you're like, I've never had a drawing from this scene before, and now I have 100. And that
Yeah.
can actually confuse collectors because they go, oh, there's so many Robin Hood drawings around. Like, oh, they're not rare. Guess what? Once I sell the last one, I don't know when I'm getting another one. But right now, it seems like there's Robin Hoods all over the place and everywhere you
Right.
could look.
Yeah.
Um, and another interesting thing, not that you asked, but what's fascinating is way back when it was all about the movie, right? Snow White, the movie in the
Mm,
theater. They're like, get this art out of here. It's in our way. We need room. Da da. So people took things home. It is so much easier to get a Snow White drawing than a Jungle Book drawing, because as they went
mm.
through it, they're like, oh, we need to start, saving these, training other animators. Da 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 da. I don't know how many Jungle Book drawings I've had. 20? Maybe less than one a year on average. Snow White, I've sold hundreds. But
Wow.
that's illogical, right? It seems illogical that something from the 60s is harder to get
Yeah,
than
it is
something from the 30s.
counterintuitive,
So there's
right?
a lot of like,
But again, back then they were just like leave it on the desk or throw it away or like you said, take it home. They
Yeah.
didn't think it had any worth or any value.
exactly. So there's interesting things about doing this as a quote unquote expert and professional that you learn that seem really different and interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is.
Did you want to hear my James Gandolfini story?
N- I'm a huge Sopranos fan. I'm not getting out of here without this story. So
Do
go.
it. Yeah.
So years ago, I had the gallery in Beverly Hills, and someone walked up to the door to get in, and we had it locked because we were doing some stuff inside. And they're pulling on it, and we look up, very birded, very scruffy. This was during The Sopranos, but it must have been off filming, and he was filming
Mm,
a Christmas movie with Ben Affleck. I don't remember what it was called. And so he's pulling on the door, and I look up and I say to my gallery director, I'm like, that's James Gandolfini. She's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. Doesn't look at I'm like, that's James Gandolfini. And all of a sudden I couldn't remember how to do anything. I couldn't remember how to talk. I couldn't remember how to breathe. I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? So I go in the back. I'm like, I don't know. So I go back. I'm just like, I'll pretend I know who he is. So he comes in. I'm like, hello, James. How can I help you? And he was like, I'm filming this movie. I'd like to give some pieces to people working on it. Can you help me? And we're like, sure. So we're bringing out this and that and the other. He wanted to buy one for Ben. It
mm.
was J-Lo round one. He wanted to get someone director, all this stuff. So he's looking at the things and stuff like that. And I'm just like, hello. You just forget how to think.
Right.
And he had to go. All of a sudden, the phone rings. He has to go. He has to go film the next scene. And I'm like, "Ugh," right? He hadn't picked anything out. And he was like, would you mind bringing, a bunch of stuff to the set? And I'm like, yes, yes, we would be
Nice.
happy to do that, James Gandolfini. So he leaves. We pack up the car. I'm like, what does James Gandolfini want? I don't know. We're throwing in Disney. I had a gangster one of the Warner Brother gangsters. I thought maybe Sopranos, he'd want the gangster. I don't know. We're just filling my car with all these things. And we drive to Culver City. We drive on. He totally, we were on the list. They greeted us. They took it. He's a nice, normal guy. He's playing video games, there in between scenes. He sat there, he let us in, offered us a drink, really nice, and was trying to show him art. And then he gets called on set. He goes, do you mind if I film my scene? I'm like, no, that's okay. And he was like, do you want to come? We're like, yes, yes, we do. So now
Whoa.
sitting in the director's chairs, I'm sitting in Ben Affleck's chair. Ben Affleck walks by and farts, believe it or not. You could
Nice.
hear it. And he's filming this scene. And I don't think this movie was very good, but I thought this was very exciting. Scene ends, we go back in, he picks, I don't remember exactly how much, but it was something like $5,000 or $6,000 worth of art. So it's a nice little sale.
Sure.
And he picks a jester cell from Sleeping Beauty, the guy that's drinking and drunk all the time. He goes,
Mhm.
ooh, I'm going to get this for Ben because this is going to piss off J-Lo. And I'm like,
Oh,
okay, James Gandolfini, we'll put it in the yes pile. And so he picks his things and then he's like, give me a discount. Give me a discount. I'm thinking, are you kidding me? And the reason I knew it was James is because I was reading People every week at that time. And so there had been a picture of him. He'd been in the magazine, right? So that's how I knew immediately from far away that was James because of the picture of the thing. And so he wants a discount. And I'm like, James Gandolfini makes $1 billion more than I do. And I'm like,
right.
what am I going to do here? So I look at him and I said, all right, James, I'm going to give you a discount because I want you to be happy. I want you to tell your friends. I want you to come back. I want, blah, blah, blah. And I said it exactly like this. I looked him in the eye and I said, but don't think that I don't know that you just got a big ass raise because the people had been like $1 million episode, whatever it was. And I say, and then it's silent. And it's silent. And I'm like, oh, I just blew this
Oh,
whole sale. I pissed off Gandolfini. He's gonna. And then he starts laughing and wrote me a check. And I took a copy of that check. And that's in our amazing stuff file. The
right.
check is Gandolfini copy.
Wow, you stood down Tony Soprano. That's pretty awesome.
Yes. You win. You win the internet,
That's right.
And
Debbie.
it's
I
probably
love it.
my favorite story, my favorite moment of the gallery ever.
Yeah.
Was
I
that.
love that.
That's
Thanks
cool.
for sharing that with us. That's
Very,
cool.
very cool. All
All
right.
right.
Well, thanks for being with us, Debbie. Thank you, Kristen.